Contrary to popular belief, the history and lore of the Invoked archetype is a lot more interesting and complex than just your typical outing of normal summon Aleister, make Mechaba, pass. The Invoked archetype is a fusion-based archetype consisting of a variety of powerful fusion monsters with unique lore and effects, all enabled by the man himself, Aleister the Invoker. In this episode of The History Of, I will be taking you through the various releases of the Invoked archetype, starting from its earliest releases all the way to the most recent wave of support. And while today we'll be taking a look at the releases, I absolutely want to make a video explaining the full lore of the Invoked archetype and the journey of our good friend Aleister, because just looking at an overview of the full lore, it looks extremely intriguing and I'd love to do a deep dive on it. If you'd like to see something like that, then definitely smash the hell out of that subscribe button and leave a like. This is the third video in my The History Of series, and I love making them and learning new things about archetypes that I may have been previously unfamiliar with. So if you'd like to see a specific archetype covered in a future episode, let me know down in the comments and I will get working on your suggestion. On February 24th, 2017, a total of 12 cards were released upon the introduction of Invoked in the set Fusion Enforcers, and would forever send the Yu-Gi-Oh community into a perpetual state of sorrow every time someone utters the sentence, "Normal summon Aleister." And with that brilliant segue, we'll slide straight into the first card released from Fusion Enforcers and the man of the hour, Aleister the Invoker. A level 4 Dark Spellcaster effect monster with 1000 attack and 1800 defense, was released as a super rare within the set and has the following effect. Normal summon Aleister! Quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one fusion monster you control. It gains 1000 attack and defense until the end of this turn. If this card is normal summoned or flipped face up, you can add one invocation from your deck to your hand. Did you know that you could add invocation if Aleister is flipped face up? I sure as hell did not. I'm just so used to checking my hand for Ash after the goddamn normal summon that I'm just curious as to who would set Aleister. I'm genuinely confused as to why that would ever be the case over just normal summoning Aleister. But with that revelation out of the way, obviously the main effect of adding invocation upon it, this goofy dude hitting the field, is the main enabler of the strategy and is always played at 3. I hate to admit it, but Aleister is a very strong card and always commands the attention of any opponent that is unfortunate enough to have to waste an Ash Blossom on it, because as we all know, the Invoked player will, no matter what, without fail, always hard draw the invocation. We all know that this is what a typical Invoked starting hand looks like. Also, if you've made it this far into the video and didn't just immediately click off, comment normal summon Aleister down in the comments. But anyway, speaking of Invocation, here it is in all of its blue glory. Invocation is a normal spell card that was released as a secret rare and reads as follows. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand as fusion material. If summoning an invoked fusion monster this way, you can also banish monsters from your field and or either player's graveyard as fusion material. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one of your banished Aleister the Invoker, shuffle this card into the deck, and if you do, add that monster to your hand. You can only use this effect of invocation once per turn. Obviously, it goes without saying that this is a good card. It is your fusion spell card for the Invoked archetype, recycles your banished copies of Aleister, and is one of the very few fusion cards in the game that allows you to use your opponent's graveyard as part of the materials used to summon your Invoked fusion monsters. And with playing Aleister and Magical Meltdown, you will have no shortage of ways to access your engine. You could literally just play 6 copies of Invocation, and I'm sure no one would notice since this card will always be glued to your opening hand. Next up, we have the big red field spell that will give you an intense headache if you look at the artwork for too long, Magical Meltdown. Magical Meltdown was released as a secret rare and reads as follows. When this card is activated, you can add one Aleister the Invoker from your deck to your hand. The activation of your cards and effects that include an effect that fusion summons a fusion monster cannot be negated. Also, your opponent's cards and effects cannot activate when a monster is fusion summoned this way. You can only activate one Magical Meltdown per turn. Apart from being the card that players unfamiliar to Invoked will inevitably waste an Ash Blossom on, Magical Meltdown has by far the most broken effect, making it so that your opponents cannot activate effects in response to effects that summon fusion monsters, and fusion summons cannot be negated. Just another one of the amazing ways that you can somehow play 9 copies of Invocation. 10 if you play Terraforming. Following up the power cards released from Fusion Enforcers, we have the Book of the Law, a quick play spell card that was released as a secret rare and reads as follows. Tribute 1 invoked monster, special summon 1 invoked monster from your extra deck with a different original attribute from that monster. This is treated as a fusion summon. You can only activate 1 Book of the Law per turn. Realistically, unless you're playing a pure version of Invoked, I don't see why anyone would play this card. It's a really cool card that can have some unique applications, but the slots that are used for the Book of the Law are better used for other cards such as, I don't know, just play Bean Soldier and call it a day. The last of the non-extra deck cards released from Fusion Enforcers would end up being Omega Summon, a trap card that was released as a secret rare and reads as follows. Target any number of your banished invoked monsters with different names, special summon them in defense position. So I'm going to put Omega Summon in the same category as the Book of the Law. Unless you're playing a pure invoked deck, this card will never see the light of day. It's a defensive card more than anything, and I can't see a real practical use for it. I'll reiterate my last point again. Bean Soldier. And now it is time to get into the extra deck. A total of 7 fusion monsters were released within the Fusion Enforcers set, and aside from 1, would all have materials required for their summons, being of course Aleister the Invoker, and a monster aligning with the fusion monster's attributes. We'll start off with the main man, knight, chariot, demon thing. Anyway, here's Invoked Mechaba. A level 9 light machine monster with 2500 attack and 2100 defense, was released as a secret rare and whose effect reads, Aleister the Invoker plus 1 light monster. Once per turn, when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can send the same type of card, monster, spell, or trap from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card. Here's your big payoff for playing Invoked, an Omni Negate and Banish as long as you have the same type of card in hand to discard, as the card that you're attempting to negate on your opponent's side of the field. It's a good card, just remember to leave some cards in your hand so that you can activate the negation effect. Next up for the fusion monsters, we have Invoked Caliga, a level 4 dark beast with 1000 attack and 1800 defense, was released as a secret rare and has the effect that reads, Aleister the Invoker plus 1 dark monster. Each player can only attempt to activate 1 monster effect per turn. Each player can only attack with 1 monster during each battle phase. There are some really cool lore implications with Invoked Caliga, and for that reason alone, he might be one of my favorite members of the Invoked archetype. But as for the effect, its Floodgate effect can be very powerful when used in correct applications, and is a headache to deal with when used in decks like Virtual World. Following Invoked Caliga, we have Invoked Ragin, a level 5 Wind Warrior monster with 2200 attack and 2400 defense, was released as a secret rare and has the following effect. Aleister the Invoker plus 1 Wind monster. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field, change it to face-down defense position. Invoked Ragin is literally a walking Book of Moon, and it's badass. Again, the artwork and lore implications are really cool and only reinforce my desire to do a deep dive into the lore of the Invoked archetype. Next up, we have Invoked Cocytus, a level 6 water dragon monster with 1800 attack and 2900 defense, was released as, you guessed it, a secret rare, and has the effect that reads, Aleister the Invoker plus 1 water monster. Cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. This card can attack while in face-up defense position, and if it does, apply its attack for damage calculation. Aside from the fact that you can't target or destroy this bad boy with card effects, the Super Heavy Samurai-like effect is also pretty unique. I don't have a whole lot to say about this dude other than cock. It is. You're welcome. The next fusion monster that we are talking about is Invoked Purgatrio, a level 7 Fire Fiend monster with 2300 attack and 2000 defense, was released as another goddamn secret rare and whose effect reads as follows. Aleister the Invoker plus 1 Fire monster. This card gains 200 attack for each card your opponent controls, can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. These goofy ass dudes remind me of a more grotesque version of Astra Ghouls. Just more really cool, ominous artwork that has me excited to read into the lore and make an in-depth video on that. The effect is also decent, allowing it to gain attack all of your opponent's monsters, and inflict piercing. A very cool addition to the Invoked archetype, but honestly, I really just can't get over how much the artwork reminds me of these Astra goofs. The first of the last two fusion monsters we have to talk about from Fusion Enforcers would end up being Invoked Magellanica, a level 8 Earth Rock monster with 3000 attack and 3300 defense, and was released as a secret rare. The only thing that I can really say about this beefy rocky boy is that the artwork, along with most of the other Invoked cards, is really cool. Invoked Magellanica is the only monster within the Invoked archetype that has no effect and only stands on its attack and defense stats. Rock on, my dude. Rounding out the fusion monsters released from this first set, we have Invoked Elysium, a level 10 light fairy monster boasting the highest base stats of any monster within the Invoked archetype at 3200 and 4000 respectively. Invoked Elysium was released as a secret rare and has the following effect. One invoked monster plus one monster that was special summoned from the extra deck must first be fusion summoned with the above fusion materials. While face up on the field, this card is also dark, earth, water, fire, and wind attribute. Once per turn quick effect, you can target one invoked monster you control or in your graveyard, banish it, and all monsters your opponent controls with the same attribute as that monster. People go back and forth on whether or not Invoked Elysium is a good card, but I really could care less about the effect right now, and all I can say is that the artwork is so cool. There will 100% be a lore video coming out sometime soon. Still hit the subscribe button though. Also, this video has a sponsor. Y'all ready for this one? It's me. Please subscribe. These initial releases for the Invoked archetype make up a majority of the monsters played within modern lists, but will now jump forward about a year and a half to August 17th, 2018, where we reach the next addition to the Invoked archetype, Aleister, the Invoker of Madness, a link to Dark Spellcaster monster with 1800 attack and who has the following effect. Two monsters with different types and different attributes. This card's name becomes Aleister the Invoker while on the field or in the graveyard. If a monster is fusion summoned while you control this monster, except during the damage step, you can discard one card, and if you do, add one Invocation or the Book of the Law from your deck to your hand. If this card you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can add one Omega Summon from your deck to your hand. More really intriguing lore implications and amazing artwork, but it really is the same kind of deal with the Book of the Law and Omega Summon, where I don't think you would ever play this card unless you were playing a pure version of Invoked, which really isn't all that strong compared to modern mashups of the deck. I'll reiterate for the third and final time, say it with me now, Bean Soldier. 10 out of 10 for the artwork, 5 out of 10 for the gameplay application. Moving on. After the release of Aleister the Invoker of Madness, we have to jump forward almost 2 years to June 5th, 2020, where we would receive our latest piece of support, currently released in the TCG, in the set Eternity Code, and it would come in the form of Invoked Agoidus? Listen, guys, any word with more than 2 vowels in a row makes my brain hurt, and I cannot for the life of me figure out how the hell you're supposed to pronounce this goofy levitating dude's name. If you have a clue, let me know so I don't have to embarrass myself further. Anyway, Invoked Floaty Man is a level 8 light fairy fusion monster with 2000 attack and 2800 defense, was released as a super rare, and has the following effect. Aleister the Invoker plus 1 fusion monster. If this card is special summoned or a monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, you can target one monster your opponent controls, destroy it. You can only use the effect of Invoked, fuck's sake, once per turn. Once per turn, you can banish one fusion monster from your graveyard. This card gains attack equal to that banished monster's attack until the end of your opponent's turn. Our good friend Invoked Floaty Man is definitely one of the better invoked fusion monsters and is presently used in modern invoked variants such as Invoked Dogmatica, Eldritch, and whatever other deck doesn't use its normal summon, so you can shove 10 copies of Invocation in there. The interruption and destruction effects of our Floaty Man here are very useful, and the attack gain can be used to get over annoying boss monsters that boast an incredibly high attack and defense stat. Also, once again, the artwork and lore implications are 10 out of 10. Good stuff. Good stuff. Bean Soldier. No, I'm just kidding. That wraps up all the current TCG releases for the Invoked archetype. Writing the script for these types of videos is a lot of fun. They're also a lot of work to make, but they're worth it. Do me a huge favor and smash the hell out of the subscribe button if you enjoyed this latest project. Also, if you are interested in a lore style video about the Invoked archetype and the journey of Aleister, let me know. Subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified when that video comes out. Thank you for watching. I love you guys. All I have left to say before signing off is, of course, normal summon Aleister. See you guys soon.